Chaitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhadra. So Srila Prabhupada went to America. He had some deities. Did not bring deities with him on the boat, but he did have some deities which he'd been worshipping in India. I think the deities which are in the Calcutta temple were originally small brass deities. One set, there are 3 sets there now in Albert Road temple. One set was Prabhupada's original deity. Was thinking not so much about deity worship, but preaching. He went to the West to begin the Sankirtan movement.
Но он не думал о поклонении божествам, поскольку для того, чтобы поклоняться божествам, вы должны быть достаточно квалифицированы. У вас должна быть вторая инициация, вы должны быть браманом, у вас должны быть качества брамана. Какие-то люди недостаточно зрелыми начинают поклонять божествам, они даже не имеют инициацию, но начинают поклонять божествам, но на самом деле так не должно быть.
If they could worship deities, he told them, he said, if you're not second initiating, then it's more like playing with dolls than deity worship. To be properly qualified, and the qualification is you follow strictly the 4 principles, you chant 16 rounds, you're engaged in devotional service, you hear the philosophy,
трансцендентную природу Господа, и у вас есть достаточно
It's not just some sentimental feelings which you have. Oh, I like this deity. So Srila Prabhupada went to the West and he was preaching there. There was no deity. But then, when Mukunda later on became Mukunda Goswami, Mukunda went to San Francisco with his wife Janaki, and they made devotees there, and then they invited Prabhupada.
И они пригласили Шрила Прабхупада, чтобы он приехал в Сан-Франциско, и Шрила Прабхупада отправился туда, чтобы инициировать преданных, и в какой-то момент однажды, когда Малти отправилась в магазин, она зашла в индийский магазин, и она нашла там куколки, и она прихватила с собой одну куколку и показала Прабхупаде. Когда она показала это Прабхупаде,
Malati was surprised. She thought, what was it? She didn't know what the doll was. She brought it to ask Prabhupada, what is this? And Prabhupada told her, he said, this is very special. He said, this is Krishna. This is a form of Krishna. It was Lord Jagannath. He said, this is a form of Krishna known as Jagannath, the Lord of the universe. And Prabhupada told her that this is a very auspicious indication to us that Lord Krishna wants to be worshipped by us. So it happened that Malati's husband, Shamsundar, was a sculptor. He knew sculpting, and he agreed that, well, first of all, he sent Malati back to the shop to see if there were any other dolls. So she came back with Balaram and Subhadra, and then her husband Shamsundar Prabhu was commissioned to carve wooden forms of Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra. And this was actually the first deities to be worshipped in his. From that time on, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra worship was introduced in San Francisco. So San Francisco became New Jagannath-puri. And after some time then Prabhupada also explained.
Также сказал, что мы можем проводить радха-ятры. Поклонение в то времена было очень простым. Не было никакой одежды для божеств. Уже одевание божеств пришло позднее, просто поклонялись в деревянной форме Господа. Люди подходили со свечкой, стояли и махали свечкой перед божеством. В самое начало поклонения. И начали это с поклонения Джаганнат, Баладева и Субхадры. Мы узнали постепенно о детстве Шрилы Прабхупады. И наш Шрила Прабхупада, у него была очень сильная любовь к Господу Джаганнату.
The deities actually worshipped near Prabhupada's home in Calcutta were Radha and Krishna. Actually, deities are called Radha Govinda. And as a young boy, Srila Prabhupada would go sometimes to the temple there and see Radha Govinda. But still, he wanted to do Rathi Atra. And his father was able to arrange it for him. And so they had the children's Rathi Atra, and all the children in the neighborhood came, and there was prasada distribution and everything.
После этого раздавали прасад. Позднее, когда Шрила Прабхупада вырос, как молодой,
Always thinking about going to visit Jagannath-puri and Vrindavan, and he would check the times of the trains, and he would check how much the fares were and everything. And then, when he actually studied at college, he graduated, he actually got the opportunity to go to Jagannath-puri for the first time as a young man. At that time he was not married, he went alone. And he described,
и он описал, как он ездил туда.
He had been given an introduction by his father to some man who lived there in Jagannath-puri, who was a friend of his father. But Srila Prabhupada said when he went to the man's home, the man prepared food for him, and Prabhupada asked him, "What is this?" And he said, "Oh, this is meat." And so Prabhupada immediately told me, he said, "Well, I cannot eat this. I cannot eat this." And the man said, "Well, I thought this was very special.
Я приготовил для тебя что-то очень особенное. Вот эта обусловленность, которая возникает у людей, если ты очень... Они думают, что ты очень бедный.
Similarly, people thought meat eating is high class. But actually, it's just the opposite. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada spent several days there in Jagannath-puri, and he would go to the temple of Lord Jagannath and see the deity. Then later I came back to Calcutta, and later he was working, married. But when later in his life, he'd gone to America, and then he introduced the worship of Lord Jagannath there in San Francisco. And they organized also Rath-yatra festival. So Srila Prabhupada liked so much these Rath-yatra festivals. It was very, very special to him. We used to, each temple in different parts of the world, they would invite Prabhupada, "Please come." we're having Rathi Yatra. And, you know, Prabhupada heard Rathi Yatra and thought, oh, very nice. He would like to come and see it, take part. It was a way of attracting Prabhupada to come to the temple. If you told him you're having a Rathi Yatra festival, he would be drawn. So I remember one time in England, we had a Rathi. So Prabhupada had different experiences in coming to England. And in the beginning of our movement, you know, our movement was began with no money. We were pretty poor, really poor. Everything, properties were rented.
Какие-то места для храмов мы все это снимали, а для того, чтобы провести фестиваль Радха-ятра, это очень сложно. Однажды мы всегда пытались сделать все очень хорошо.
Because the Bhaktivedanta Mandir is quite far, you know, from the airport in London. It's far, a long drive. So we thought, let's hire a helicopter for Prabhupada. So they did that and brought Prabhupada in the helicopter to Bhaktivedanta Mandir. Problem was the next year when Prabhupada came, he said, you know, last year you brought me in the helicopter. This year we're taking the car. They said, Prabhupada, we're still paying for the helicopter. Prabhupada laughed also. So we had Rathi Yatra this one year in London, and in Prabhupada's time we would do the Rathi Yatra right in the centre of London. If you go to London, in the centre of London, there's a place called Piccadilly. And there's a thing called Trafalgar Square, you know, because a historic monument right in the centre of London. It's a big attraction, you know. And there's a big column, very big, tall, and on the top of that column there's someone called Nelson. So they call it Nelson's column. Nelson was the man who was in charge of the fleet which fought against Spain. You see, there was a war between Spain and England, and Nelson led the fleet which defeated the Spanish Armada. So they put a big monument right in the center, very tall. So we had a Rathi Yatra, and the chariot was so big that the newspapers printed an article that Jagannath's Rathi Yatra challenges supremacy of Nelson's column. And Prabhupada has written about this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he describes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because in Chaitanya Charitamrita it describes that Lord Jagannath's chariot is so big that it looks like Mount Meru. Now Mount Meru is just gigantic compared to Mount Everest. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, right? The Himalayas is the biggest, and Mount Everest right at the top. But Mount Meru is gigantic. Mount Everest is tiny compared to Mount Meru. And so in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says Jagannath's chariot is like Mount Meru. So the article came in the newspaper that London's Rathi Yatra, the chariot was challenging the supremacy of Nelson's column. So Prabhupada is very good, very nice. And so we had this big festival, and Prabhupada was amazed, because usually, you know, there's no money. You know, we're so poor. Everything was rented, and we were always struggling. But somehow we put on this Rathi Yatra, and it was just wonderful. A lot of publicity, and lots of prasadam, flowers everywhere. It was really well done. And Prabhupada said, very nice. He said, where did you get the money? So what he said, they said, Well, Prabhupada, there was one devotee actually, it's Mahavishnu Swami. So he was brahmachari at the time. And so he was put in charge of the Rath Yatra. And he said, you have to raise the money, because the temple has no money to give you. So you're in charge of Rath Yatra, but you have to raise the money. But Lord Jagannath arranged that as soon as he was put in charge of the Rath Yatra, one of his family members died, and he got a big inheritance. So he took all of his inheritance and used it for the Rath Yatra festival. And when Prabhupada heard that, he said, money well spent. So this was the arrangement of Lord Jagannath. One of Lord Jagannath's pastimes. He does these wonderful things. Another nice pastime about, have I got time? Another nice pastime I wanted to tell about was the New York Rath Yatra. Because New York, Prabhupada called it the most important city in the world. Like, you know, it used to, in Prabhupada's time, the 70s, New York was, America was where it was really leading the world, and New York was the city in America, and Fifth Avenue is the most important street, like in the world, the Fifth Avenue. So they arranged to put on Rath Yatra right down Fifth Avenue. And Prabhupada was really amazed that we could get permission. He said, how did you ever get permission? They said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, actually, the New York government have got that there's no processions allowed. They've banned all the processions because, you know, with the activist time, there was a lot of, you know, anti-this and anti-that, you know, ban the bomb, anti-Vietnam, no more demonstrations. They stopped everything. He said, how did you ever get permission to do your Rath Yatra? He said, the devotee Tosan Krishna Prabhu, he said, well, Prabhupada, he said, we went to the office and we told them, we want to have this prayer. He said, what are you going to do? He said, it's just 3 hand-pulled cards. So they thought, 3 hand-pulled cards. Not very significant, very small. Okay. Yeah. So Prabhupada said, he said, yes. He said, this is in our philosophy. Prabhupada said, just like Bali Maharaj and Lord Vamanadi. And Lord Vamanadi, just 3 steps of Latin. And with 3 steps of Latin, 2 steps of Latin, Bali Maharaj took the whole universe. So Prabhupada was laughing how Lord Jagannath arranged that we could get the Rath Yatra right on 5th Avenue. And when we actually did it, then Prabhupada personally organized the parade. Just like Lord Chaitanya would organize the kirtan for the Rath Yatra. He would divide the different devotees into different kirtan groups, and the people from the different villages, like, you know, the people coming from the Shantipur Kirtan party and what the other villages where we'd all come from. There are different villages, they'd all come to Rath Yatra. So they each had their own kirtan party, and Lord Chaitanya would organize it, and there would be 3 parties in the front, and then 1 party on either side, and then another couple of parties at the back. And this way, there were 7 kirtan parties, all organized by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada organized our Rath Yatra, and Tamal Krishnamaya writes about it in his book, Servant of the Servant. And he said, Prabhupada did it, he said, just like in Moscow, you know, on May Day, the 1st of May, they'll have the parade with all the military and all the bombs and all the, the army, they're all out there parading in this red square, and it's a big thing, you know, the power of strength. Look at our military and our army, it's so strong, you know, we have all these bombs, and you better listen, you better watch it, because, you know, look at our army. So Prabhupada organized Rath Yatra like that. He had the Radha Damodar party buses all there. They all went in the parade, and all the vehicles, they were all in the parade, and all the chariots, they had it all organized. He said, let people see this Hare Krishna movement, no small time thing. So many vehicles and big chariots and everything. And then the next day, article came in the newspaper in New York, Fifth Avenue, where East meets West. And Prabhupada loved it. He had copies of it made, and he would show it to people when he would come to visit India and go to different places. He would say, you see, our movement, where East meets West. So, like this, Prabhupada loved so much this Rath Yatra festival. The worship of Lord Jagannath was so dear to him. So, it's very, very special that we were able to get this wonderful temple here in Mayapur Dham, that these deities were also given to us. But before we actually got this property, Jagannatha-katha Maharaj was saying, don't start anything yet, wait till they sign it over, because many times people would come and they would say, you know, we'll give you land, we'll give you this, they make promises, but there would always be some catch in it, you know, something would go wrong. They wanted something which Prabhupada didn't want to do, and oftentimes the thing would fall through. So Jagannatha Maharaj said to the devotees, because we got this property after Prabhupada had left, so Jagannatha Maharaj was overseeing everything, and he told the devotees, wait until everything is actually signed over, and then do everything. So there was one English devotee who was doing pujari work, Anakadombubi Prabhu, and he was serving the deities here, but then they said, stop. They said, don't do any more yet, wait till we get everything. So he had a dream, and in his dream, he saw Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, and they were crossing the fields. And he said, where are you going? Lord Jagannath, where are you going? Why are you leaving? He said, we're going to Mayapur. He said, why? He said, because you're not feeding us. You're not bringing any prasadam here anymore. We're going over to Mayapur there. We want prasadam. And so then after that came, then he said, okay, you better start. You better carry on with the worship. So ever since then, they've been worshipping very, very nicely. Every day they have chapana bhog. Right? 56 offering? 56 preparations, is it? Not all.
I think it's throughout the day or something. But it's 56.
Yeah, 56 chapana bhog. And so that's a lot. A lot of cooking, a lot of seva. Jagannath Swami ki! Yeah. So now we're here at Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
We've been enlivened hearing the glories of Rath Yatra festival from the lips of